scarf with her t-shirt. She's like,
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Becker.
Here.
Mrs. Chu.
Here.
Mr. Sismar.
Here.
Mr. Hung.
Here.
Mrs. Lax.
Here.
Mrs. Reese.
Here.
Mr. Sealer.
Here.
Mrs. Shaw.
here.
President Simmons.
We have a quorum. Please rise to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just want to make sure I didn't say consonants. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published at the Board of Education offices. Written notice was also provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home News and Tribune, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped for later broadcast. It is the policy of the Board of Education that videotape meetings are not edited for any purpose. Individuals who speak at the board's public meetings should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening and welcome. Our school year is off to a good start. We're seeing the first hints of frost on the ground. I personally am thrilled that I broke out the boots today instead of the flip-flops, but that's my own personal. And I welcome you all here tonight. And we're going to start off with the superintendent's report. Dr. Valesky?
Thank you, Ms. Becker. Good evening, everyone. The artwork on display in the boardroom this evening was created by students from Central Elementary School. The art teachers of these talented students are Andy Ackerman and Jessica Rigby. Danielle DeNino is the principal. On Tuesday, September 25th, the high school held their annual activity fair to introduce students to clubs and extracurricular activities offered at the high school. The event was a great success, as over 500 students attended and more than 45 clubs were represented. East Brunswick High School has 53 commended students in the 2019 National Merit Scholarship Program. About 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. Commended students placed in the top 50,000 scorers of more than 1.6 million students who entered the 2019 competition by taking the 2017 PSAT. This week, all sixth grade students embarked on the Dallenbach's field study. During the course of the week, each house traveled to Dallenbach's nature trails and rotated through 5 stations to study phenomena within a local ecosystem. The stations included layers of forest, stream ecology, soil ecology, tree morphology, and limnology. And I even know what limnology is. The trips provided students the opportunity to observe essential components of a forest ecosystem and introduced students to methods used to assess ecosystems. A special thanks to Director Michael Reisner and his staff at the East Brunswick Division of Parks and Recreation for their support in maintaining the natural area for our use. Congratulations to all the fall sports on a great opening. EB Athletics is doing well as we start to prepare for the GMC tournaments in October.
Wow.
Wish the teams luck and visit ebnet.org/athletics to find out about the upcoming schedule for Bears games. The second annual EB Ed Camp Exit 9 will be held on Saturday, October 6th at Hammersholt Middle School, beginning with a welcome breakfast and registration at 8:15 a.m. This event, sponsored by the East Brunswick Education Association Pride Committee, provides an opportunity for teachers and parents to learn side by side. This year's topics include navigating social media, using Naviance, technology tools for learning, and much more. We invite you to visit us on Sunday, October 7th which is the rescheduled rain date for East Brunswick Public Schools table, or at each East Brunswick Public Schools table, for the 5th Annual East Brunswick Day from noon until 5 p.m. The event, sponsored by the East Brunswick Township Recreation Department, will take place at the East Brunswick Community Arts Center, located at 721 Cranberry Road. We look forward to seeing you there. And on Tuesday, October 16th, 2018, the East Brunswick Education Foundation will present their fall fashion show at the Estate at Farrington Lake. The event will be sponsored by Northfield Bank. Fashions and accessories will be provided by TJ Maxx. Starting at 6:30 p.m., guests will enjoy an evening of dinner, music, fashions, raffle prizes, and fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valesky. Actually, before we get into our presentation tonight, I wanted to ask you if you could speak on something that several board members have mentioned to me, and including myself, we've been asked about by members of the public. There's been a lot of press about money that the state has that they're going to be giving out to school districts, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about this. So would you mind giving us an idea of what this money is? Do we have it? When are we getting it, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. As the public may know, you may have heard in the press that there was a reallocation of state funding among school districts this year. There were winners and there were losers. So some districts got more money and some districts got significantly less money. We, however, did receive some additional funding. For 2019, our state aid was increased by $562,977. But that money comes to us in incremental payments throughout the school year. So we haven't gotten all that in one lump sum. And Mr. Crotchfeld can explain how that process works if you want further clarification.
Yeah, I would.
But if I could,
Oh.
let me just share with you that of the money that we received, we also received an additional estimation of charter school tuition that we must pay to the local charter school. And that increase this year was $392,234. So the difference, the real difference of what is left discretionary money is just a little over $170,000. Of that $170,000, we have enrolled, as of today, we have enrolled 555 new students, and nearly 10% of that enrollment has come with IEPs. So we have had to provide additional resources in terms of human resources to support many of those students. And we don't have a final tally on that number, but I can tell you that number far exceeds the $170,000 that we had left over from the additional state aid, if that helps.
So approximately how many new students we got, and 10% of them?
555,000 and about 10%.
But the
Either
number of students?
total that we
Yeah,
have
the
enrolled now.
The new students.
We have 555 brand-new students.
Okay, that's what I was.
Brand-new students since the end
Got
of
it,
last school
okay.
year. So this was enrollment throughout the summer and up and including through today.
Somebody have a question before I ask Joe to shed some more background on this? Joe, if you would talk about how we received this?
All right, so state aid is received twice a month. So they break out the total allotment, entitlement over 12 months, with the understanding that the last two state aid payments in June are deferred until July. This way the state can bridge their budget gap that they've had for, the last 10 years. I think it's also important to remind everybody, and we state this quite often, back in 2010, we received a $3 million reduction in state aid, and then in 2011, we received another $4 million reduction in state aid. So our low point was $13.8 million a year in state aid in 2011, and we're currently at, for the 2019 year, $18.7 million. So We've gone up, but before those reductions, we were at 20 million. So we're still not back to where we were 10 years ago. So of course, we all know costs increase, utilities, salaries, benefits, and we're still, almost $2 million behind where we were 10 years ago. So, I think that's always important when we talk about, the state aid and the funding. And as we've stated before, the state does not follow their own formula. So based off of their formula, we should be receiving approximately $30 million a year in state aid. And we're at 18.7.
We're woefully behind.
Yes.
I can also remember a while back, when school districts got a letter from the state in the spring saying, oh, those last 2 state aid payments we're supposed to make in May and June, we're not going to be making them. We don't have the money, and you'll get your state aid when you can. And we were fortunate in that we were able to carry on, meet all our financial obligations, but there were school districts all over the state scrambling, taking out loans, trying to get that. But the state can do that. They can just send out a letter and say, hey, check's in the mail a couple months later. But I'll be honest with you, the reason why people ask me about it, or that have asked me about it, is because they want to know, was that money ever used for something like tax relief? So the only thing I can say is that this board is constantly talking about things like tax relief. And I can promise you that we take our 150-page line item budget every year, and it is close to 150 pages, representing $150 million. And we scrutinize and talk and discuss about the $5 line items the same way we do about the $500,000 line items, because we take every single dollar seriously, because it's the taxpayers' money and they're entrusting us with us. So we are always talking about tax relief in some way, shape, or form.
If I can just add to...
Please do.
Yesterday at Garden State Coalition of Schools meeting that we hold here in East Brunswick, there was some discussion about the uneven treatment of state school aid among school districts that you would probably consider to be the equivalent of East Brunswick. Hillsborough is going to lose $5.6 million over a period of 5 years, and Freehold Regional High School District is going to lose $20 million over that period of time.
20?
Yes, $20 million over 5 years in state aid.
That's a big
So,
district.
Obviously, school districts are taking huge hits in this redistribution. So we can count ourselves, quite fortunate that we ended up with an extra $500,000. But this is, definitely, going to be a struggle. Even a city like Jersey City, who was considered to be, the poster child for getting more state aid than what they deserved because of the rising property costs in their town, their funding currently is below adequacy, and that they will lose the most in state aid. They would actually have to triple their property taxes to equalize the state aid that they had been receiving. So even though, we've always been saying, we want this equalized, we want it fairer, please understand that all of these cities or towns are really hurting right now because of the inequitable distribution of state aid. And there was also a good deal of discussion yesterday about the possibility of a need for a new school funding form, or excuse me, school funding law, and also some discussion about whether or not the 2% cap has now run its course in light of the fact that there are so many school districts that are now going to be working with far less money than they had the previous year.
I just want to make a point of clarification, because there's two factors with the state aid. The $500,000 that we are referring to was not part of the reallocation, okay? That was part of our original state aid allotment back in February, all right?
Okay.
With the governor's state of address and the state aid comes out. So when the adjustment came out,
Okay.
the
I
end of
see.
June, we were
The
flat.
adjustment is what I should
But
have
I
been
think it is
referring to.
important, because we did receive a $500,000 increase of our state aid compared to 2018. And of that, like Dr. Valesky said, almost $400,000 was charter, had to be committed to the charter school.
Right.
All right, so I just want to make sure the public understands that when that change came about back in the end of June, beginning of July, and a lot of school districts had to panic to bridge that gap, we remained flat based off of the original state aid. All right.
All I can promise you is that we will do our best to provide the public and our staff, our administrators, support staff, our school community with the facts and with what's really going on. And because there's a lot of misinformation all over the place. And we even needed the clarification, right? I learned a few things. I'm frantically taking notes here. So we will just do our best to update everybody as we go along this process and finally get to a point where we actually see, as the dust settles, what we have and what we can do. All I can promise you is we will continue to be honest and present you with the facts. Anybody else? Dr. Valesky, is there any?
If I could take just a moment to update the community on Frost Elementary School.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you've been away from East Brunswick for the last 3.5 weeks, this is news to you. To everyone else, it's probably common knowledge. We started the school year at Frost Elementary with realizing we had some mold in the building. Fortunately, we worked with a professional contractor and a professional testing company to make sure that mold was remediated before the start of school. However, as we've installed new air conditioning systems in our buildings, and Frost being one of them, we're finding there are two separate important components that have to go hand in hand. The installation of the mechanical equipment and the control system that tells the mechanical equipment how to operate. And this year has not been favorable to us and to a variety of other school districts with the humid conditions we've been suffering through. I was at a superintendent's roundtable on Friday. Old Bridge had a significant cleanup at their high school. North Brunswick was closed for 5 days, doing a cleanup there. And a variety of districts throughout the county were suffering through the same kind of problems we were encountering at Frost. Even buildings that weren't air conditioned, teachers were reporting they would walk into the building and everything would be completely wet in the morning. Floors would be wet, student desks would be wet. So these are really abnormal conditions, and we've kind of confirmed that with the professionals. This is a really significant change in environment for us. But we do know that the system that controls the mechanical part of Frost has to be fine-tuned. And so that is causing some of the problem, and we have people working on it right now. I have been personally calling parents who have been calling me and have concerns about their students and their environment. Ms. Atkins and I are going to be at Frost back-to-school nights next week, both of them. And we're going to take a window from 6 a.m. to 6:45 p.m. to answer any parents' questions at the facility as they come to their children's back-to-school night. And that's open to any staff, too, who wants to pop in and listen to what we have to say or ask any questions. We've been constantly monitoring and testing the environment. Trudy and I were personally at Frost on Friday. They came out, they tested again. And so we're getting there, and I apologize for the length of time it's taking. I know it's frustrating for the staff. I know it's frustrating for the parents. I know it's frustrating for the students to have to be relocated. But Mrs. Payette and her staff have been very prudent about assessing the conditions in the morning. And if they have to relocate a classroom, they will do that. But I am fingers crossed that we are close to getting this resolved and having a fully functional, air-conditioned, dry building that everyone will continue to enjoy.
Any questions or anything from the board? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work the administration has done. Appreciate the staff in the buildings have been doing an incredible job.
Could I say one more thing?
No?
I do want to acknowledge the staff at Frost.
Yeah.
Because they have been extremely patient. And their reaction to having a plugged sewer line the first day of school was phenomenal. I think.
Again, that's not my son's fault.
Yeah. Chad actually shook his head yes when I asked him if he did.
Cole.
Or Cole, not, yeah, that's right, Cole. But for us to relocate an entire building in 40 minutes, the first day of school with brand-new students, that is a testament to the professionalism of the staff, and I just want to say thank you. I've said thank you before, but I want to say thank you.